Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Svelte Sirens stream. This time we have Skeleton UI on with us, and we have Chris here from Skeleton. How are you doing today, Chris?
Hey, doing great.
Wonderful. I'm so excited to dive into this. But first, I want to hear a little bit about you and get a little bit of your background and how and why you started Skeleton.
Sure. So I can tell you a little bit about myself. So obviously, Chris Simmons, I've been doing this for something like 20 years now. My background is in UI design, front-end development, and UX. I've worked in a variety of different industries, everything from like photography to media, agencies, and then really in the last 10 years or so, my focus has been on working in various different tech startups, so building like SaaS applications and that kind of thing.
Okay.
um, I come from a background working in Angular, for the last, let's call it 8 or so years. And so it's been interesting to see kind of the rise of Svelte and SvelteKit in that time. I think it was about a year or so ago that I kind of came across it, and uh, really from a talk Rich Harris did called Rethinking Reactivity. So,
I swear that is the talk that almost every Svelte developer was like, that made me make the switch. It's a
it,
great talk.
it's perfect. It's a perfect summary of, what are the benefits of Svelte. Again, I came from Angular, and so the sort of like what I was doing to what Rich was showing was just, night and day. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much simpler, so much less boilerplate and noise, and I can just jump in there and be productive right away. So just a really cool experience. So like I saw that video and I was immediately like I have to start building stuff in Svelte, and so that was kind of really the kind of tipping point that started work on Skeleton. And so we decided like we want to do something, and that was the project that started it for us.
Awesome. So why UI? Why a toolkit or a design system? What are we calling it these days?
Naming stuff and development, it's the hardest thing. And so we call it a UI toolkit just because initially when we started it, we were calling it a component library, and that was a very apt name for it. But the scale and the scope of things have grown, and so now we kind of put UI toolkit just to indicate that, hey, we do a little bit more than maybe what you're expecting. And we have a very strict focus on Svelte and use of Tailwind. We have very deep integration of those. We use everything from like components to actions to stores from Svelte, and then pretty much every feature that Tailwind offers us as well, be it the utility classes, the light and dark mode, and provides a really nice system for building themes, which is obviously very important for a UI library, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting that you actually go a step farther than like just a component library. You're not giving just the structure, you're actually giving the ability to use the component, like a modal, say, like you're using stores and actions, so you can actually use those in a Svelte library.
Yeah, absolutely. And we obviously get some comparison to the folks like Daisy UI and Flowbyte, which are really great libraries. We really enjoy those. But the until you kind of get into like Flowbyte Svelte or something like that, typically what they're offering is more of like your HTML and your CSS and sort of that UI shell, right? And you kind of have to
Mhm.
bring in your own logic, if you will, or sort of build that
Yeah.
up into it, kind of integrate everything together, which has its perks and things like that. But we're trying to really provide sort of like a complete solution for folks that people like me, that I'm wanting to build a Svelte or SvelteKit application. I just want it to work, right? I just want to be able to drop these components in and bring my own business logic, and then be able to build a complete application out of that. And so really we draw a lot of inspiration from tools that are outside of the Svelte space, stuff like Manteam from the React world, which offers this just very like well put together documentation and really nice looking components, and it's very feature complete. And they have like these add-on modules if you want like a date picker and things like that. Like we're kind of trying to follow that model really, and
And
just really kind of bring that, again, that complete solution for your UI and front end.
And I mean, if you have a design systems background at all, you know that like making things like a date picker or modal accessible and making these things like
Yes.
consistent is really difficult. So
Yes.
having a toolkit that provides that for you is a really nice option, right?
Yeah, because I mean, really, that's what we built it from, the ground up. From we were building it initially as a tool for us to satisfy those problems, and so it's been interesting because we built it with that approach, and then we open sourced it, and it's like, oh, everybody else is like, oh, I need those solutions too. So it's been really nice to like, yeah, have that validation of like, yeah, that's actually the right way to approach that. But yeah, for what you said, just having the accessibility and all those sort of problems sort of taken care of for you,
Yeah.
it's just a weight off your shoulders, which is really nice.
Well, awesome. I'm excited to dive into the code. So is there anything else you want to share before we start sharing our screen here and get
I
going?
don't know. I think we've talked it up. Let's show it off. Yeah.
Let's dive in. Okay. I will go ahead and add my screen here, and I've got the website pulled up. We can make it bigger for now. So we've got Skeleton is currently in beta here. So do you want to talk a little bit about beta and like where you're at?
Yeah, it just means that we're putting out regular updates every other week, and we're constantly fixing issues. We put stuff out, people see something, report an issue, we're fixing it. We're just not stable yet. It doesn't mean it's kind of like the same sort of state of like what Svelte Kit has been in, where you can use it, you can put it in production if you really want, but just know that, hey, that particular API for that component or something might change.
My church.
And we always put out a migration guide or anything like that if something major happens, but just so you know, it's still a little in flux. So,
Yeah. And I mean, that's nice to know that you're constantly adding things too. And even though like something might change, it's still a great system to
oh
use.
yeah.
But very cool. So where do we need to go? What do we need to do to dive in?
We hit the big green getting started button right there, and then we have, which is kind of unique to Skeleton. You see it in frameworks and things like that, but you don't really see it with UI library or something like that. We have this CLI that we've created that will actually scaffold and do a lot of the work for you. So Brittney's going to try this live, and fingers crossed everything goes
That
smoothly
everything
here.
Yeah, and real quick from the chat too, we had Ben say that your Discord's here and cheering for you.
Oh, great. Yeah, I see the chat. Yeah.
And then Lacey said that the website looks really nice. So kudos to the designer. I really love the website. Like this made me want to use Skeleton even
Oh,
more. I love it.
great. Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. So we're just going to copy this command here. Is that what we want to do?
That's the one.
Okay, so I will just throw that over there. And I'm not going to call it my skeleton app. I'm going to call it Siren Stream Skeleton. And I apologize for the really clacky keyboard. I'm sure that's great for everyone.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
All right, so
the only thing you're going to want to make sure you pick there is the TypeScript syntax. You can probably get away with JavaScript if you want, but all of our documentation kind of leans towards TypeScript. We recommend that, and just personal preference. That's
I used to be like a TypeScript hater, and I'm coming around. Like I have started learning a little bit here and there and starting to add it to my projects. And so I've definitely
we find it's easier to take that away if you then and not be there kind of thing. So
absolutely
that's the reason I'm kind of leaning to that.
All right. And
then for any of these other extras, you can install, ESLint and Prettify and things like that if you want. We're not going to be using that for this demo, so optional if you want to put that.
Is this running on top of the Svelte Kit CLI? Because it seems like it's asking a lot of the same questions.
It's built with the same technology, yes, and so it's going to look very familiar if you've ever used that. It's the same prompts, it's the same it's doing the same things kind of in the background. But you're going to see as we go through, it'll start asking for some skeleton-specific options here in a minute. So
okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do ESLint and Prettier. I like both of those. I don't need testing, right?
No.
So I'm not going to do Playwright or VTest for testing. And now we've got some skeleton-specific stuff.
Yeah, and so given the fact that we use Tailwind, they do provide some official plugins that you can do for like styling forms and some typography stuff. So we optionally kind of allow folks to go ahead and install those. We're not going to use those today, so we're just going to go ahead and hit enter, and we can skip through that.
Okay.
And then we offer, obviously a slew of preset themes The one you see on the website is the default skeleton theme, so that's going to be the one I recommend that we go with. But you can change this out at any time. And we offer like a really nice theme generator. So if you want to go and put in your own brand colors and things like that, it's very easy to generate one of
I
these.
did tweet that the other day too. Let me pop that in the chat. Is that the link for that?
That's the one.
Right, perfect. Okay, there is the link to the theme generator. That was really cool to play with. And
you can see those actually on the site there, right there, that little drop down. So if you want to any of those, you can try those on the fly.
You were mentioning that Seafoam a little inspired by the
yeah, that we're trying to figure out some themes and stuff like that. And I was like, maybe one of these days we'll talk to the Sirens. And so let me
very nice. Okay, so we'll stick with the skeleton theme for today. So we'll go ahead and hit enter on there, and then
there you go. And then we offer kind of two options here. You can just kind of have the configuration, but no routes or anything set up. Or let's go ahead and do the skeleton welcome page, and that'll just give us a nice little page with a couple components and things like that.
I'm very confused by this because if you're running the SvelteKit CLI, it's like the skeleton option.
Yes.
It's the bare bones.
Yeah, and then we also have like a component that's typically called a skeleton, but we call it placeholder. So it's skeleton.
Oh, that's funny. So the skeleton welcome is what we're going to go with there, and that will go ahead and I'll make.
You'll see it's working there. What it's doing is it's just going ahead and scaffolding the project, installing the dependencies, and just doing all that for you.
So it's going to set up Tailwind for us, configure Tailwind, skeleton, and everything will be.
Yeah, you'll get Tailwind, you'll get any of the configurations changes needed for that. You'll get a theme, and you'll get some of the basic like style sheets and a couple of different components and things like that, all just kind of set up and ready to go for you.
All right, so it set up the folder and told me to run npm run dev. So I'm going to go ahead and cd into the folder and then just reopen it back in this window so we get a refresh here with the folder up. Perfect. So we can see what we actually have in our package.json. We've got everything that we set up. We've got skeleton. We've got Tailwind already configured for us. Our Tailwind config is set up with our plugin. Very nice.
And we just do a few things, like a few defaults there. Like in order to support light and dark mode for Tailwind, you'll see like the dark mode option there is set with a class. If you were to open like your app.html file, this sort of root file, you'll see that we go ahead and apply the dark class there at the top of on the HTML element. So we just default to dark for everybody. So sorry, Rich Harris, we're going with dark mode.
If you missed the stream yesterday, there was a little conversation there about them liking light mode, and I don't really agree with that.
But it's easily changed. You just remove that if you want to default to light.
So this defaults to dark even if they have their system setting enabled?
It's basically kind of like what's there on load. And then we have a component called light switch, which will do a little bit more logic with that. And it will read your system setting and set that as the default preference. But it's kind of an extra thing and gives it the little toggle so you can switch back and forth on the fly.
Awesome. Okay. And I see this data theme skeleton. Is this how we would change the theme if we had multiples installed? Is that?
No, the way we do the themes we have some, for our preset themes, we have a couple little like extras that we put on. So one of those is like you'll see like a gradient background. And so this is just helping provide that. So if you want the theme, but you don't want that gradient background, you can come in and take that out and that would.
Gotcha. I like the gradient background. I want the gradient.
I think it was like progressive, like we're adding little add-ons that come with that. So
yeah, and I think this is. Did you add the display content here?
That's just all SvelteKit. We add the class for the full and overflow.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Ensure that fills the window, but everything else should be stock there.
I feel like this was not in the last one I created.
It's rather new. Yeah, it's rather new.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So what's first? Now everything is set up and configured. Do we need to run an npm install or?
No, it does that for you. You will want to start your server and then just point to your local host.
It did npm by default, right? Okay. So I was going to use pnpm, but I didn't know if it ran.
The CLI will use, you can use Yarn or pnpm for that. So you do have
I just copied it. So it was, this is going to open in the wrong browser. So I'm just going to open this over here.
All right, and there we go. So
Right. So
ship it,
this is
right? So,
yeah, that was easy.
yeah. So there's a few things that we set up. There's if you want to open the root layout, I'll talk through a couple things that it's done for us here.
And I'm just going to minimize the, oh, maybe I'm going to minimize the terminal. There we go.
So you got
Okay.
the page and then the layout file. That's the one we want to look at first, I think. Yep, there you go. And so you'll see it imports a couple things for us, like some style sheets. We see that's right there is where we set the theme. So if you change theme-skeleton CSS to theme.seafoam, which is the Sirens inspired theme there, you will see that right away.
FAOM.
That's the one. Yep. Boom. There
Wow.
we go. So easily to, it's very easy to switch those, even if you decide to do so later. Or if you replace with your own theme, you would just save that as a little CSS file and pull that in there.
Let me ask, is there a purge set up in here somewhere? Does it use like purge CSS to get rid of things that you don't use, or does it only use the things that are imported?
We're actually about to put in some instructions for folks to do that, sort of as like a prep for production sort of thing, like install that and it'll kind of do that for you. It will have to be done per project. It has to be handled kind of locally in your project. But yes, we're going to be including something like that. So
awesome. Okay, cool. I wonder if Svelte itself, because it like looks at the CSS that you're using, I wonder if it does some of the tree shaking for you.
We've just gone down this rabbit hole. So that was our assumption as well, and it turns out that that's not the case, unfortunately. I wish it was, and maybe we'll see that.
Yeah, that would have been easy to just piggyback on that, but
yeah. So will be a couple extra steps, but it's looking like it'll be a pretty simple process. So maybe like install a package, install, add the plugin to a config, and you're kind of good.
Well, that's something to look forward to then.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, do you want to
see where it's bringing in the all.css, which kind of just brings in all of our styles. We do list those on the documentation if you want to bring in just if you're going to use like a small subset of those. We do make those available, but we just default to all to make it simple. You have your global style sheet, which is just part of Svelte Kit itself, and then we import a couple different. Yeah, there you go, and just a couple default.
One thing I noticed about doing this is if you're setting up Tailwind in a project, usually you have this file and it has the @Tailwind components, base, and layer here, and Skeleton takes care of that for you.
Take care of that for you because we actually use that, and it's kind of like an order of operations. Like we've got to have that imported, and then some of our style sheets and
keeping
all that.
your cascading style sheets like actually cascading correctly. That makes sense.
And it's a very difficult thing to understand that of the flow of everything happening. And so a lot of our support issues we've been dealing with have been okay, you got to make sure you delete this, and it trips folks up. So I'm so thankful that we have the CLI now that just does that for people.
I think too, that is one of the things in general that trip people up with CSS is not understanding the cascading nature of it and how that layer affects things. And so lots of CSS problems generate from that. So I can understand totally.
Oh yeah. And then the other couple of things you got going on, we're just importing a couple different components. We have our app shell, which is kind of controlling the page layout. So you have a fixed header, and you can optionally bring in some sidebars and footers, and of course the page content in the middle, and then the app bar, which is that bar you see at the top of the page that says skeleton and has the little Discord and Twitter links up there at the top. Cool. So this is part of the welcome page. If you were to do the bare bones, you wouldn't have any of this. It would just kind of be a blank default page. But just do that to kind of help folks get started. And you can see a couple of those components on the page itself, and we've used a couple props and options to just kind of configure that. All of our
left looks like a prop that you can configure on the app shell, and so this puts.
If we had a sidebar, that would help provide a few different styles to that. Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can see the styles themselves are actually just Tailwind utility classes. And so that's a cool thing about Skeleton is that we provide, really nice defaults out of the box. But if you want to say change that header bar to have a different color or something like that, we have a prop called background, and you provide it a utility class that sets the background color to whatever you want. So you could do, BG green 500, and there you go. Your background for that is now that color.
And I know like Tailwind is a very love or hate relationship like people
Yeah.
have with it. But if you're bought into that system, like it is a great set of defaults to build off of.
And I completely empathize, understand how the opinion that people have when they see it, because I had the exact same opinion. I looked at the first time and I was like, this is garbage. Like, I hate this. Why are they doing inline style? That's what we've been
Yeah.
trying to avoid for years, right? And then it wasn't until I really got in there and started, hands-on and using it, that I realized that no, that's not really what it's doing. It's utility classes, which I was already building that myself for my own projects, but I was having to rebuild, reinvent the wheel every time I built a new
Mhm.
project. And so what Tailwind is bringing to the table is that you get all of those just turnkey for free, right? You just get
Yeah.
that. I want to set a background color, or radius or border or whatever. I can do that, and it's configurable right there in line and just easy to do. And there's the complaint about, oh, yeah, there's so many and things like that. But honestly, in practice, it's really not bad
It's
if
a
you're using
trade-off.
components, especially because a lot of that stuff kind of gets abstracted. You're just doing a few styles here and a few styles over there and a few styles over there.
I have two tricks that I use too, because I really don't like that it muddies up the markup a
Yeah,
lot. So I have two things. If it's repetitive, I
yeah,
will put it in a style block with
mhm,
lang equals post CSS. You can do that and then use add
yep,
apply,
yeah.
or you can use in JSX. So if you're in React land, you can use just a JavaScript
Yeah.
variable and then use that variable on the class name.
That's kind of how we build a lot of our components, is we'll build it where the props that we set is like a background prop, and it will have a default that is a Tailwind class. And so a lot of our styles are being applied in JavaScript, which is kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
But in practice, it works really well. It's really nice because then you can add logic to that, which you don't
Yeah.
get with normal CSS. And so you can have conditionals of, like, if this thing is turned on, switch between this class and that class, and it just happens in a very clean fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, awesome. And then it looks like we're using some svelte fragments here and just inside of the app bar. So you're creating little fragments of sections.
Yeah, so we split that kind of long bar into three parts. So we have kind of like where your logo would go, and then sort of like a middle section if maybe you wanted to put a search or something like that. And then the far right side where you can put links or what have you there.
I'm not used to seeing fragments in svelte. Like, are we in React land?
No, no, this is
I
pretty
know.
common
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah. And I think people have kind of mixed opinions on those as well. But the nice thing you can do with this, Svelte fragment specifically, is that you don't have to use Svelte fragment. You could have a div there and just use the slot lead or whatever, and just kind of apply that, and that will become your slot. It's just we do it because we don't want to add extra markup wrapping
Markup.
everything, because it just makes the page a little heavier. It's a little harder to find if you're, going through the code or whatever. So
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
And then other than that, like, we've got, a couple different slots that we use for, I mentioned the header and the sidebars and things like that. So you'll see some of that where it's like the app bars and in a slot header and that kind of thing.
What is a
And then a
slot?
little further down the page, we just have the typical, slot there, which is for your page content. That's where if you go from page to page, it's just swapping that for your routes there.
Yeah. I like to call it where you put your children.
Yeah, that's a that's a good one. Yeah. And then obviously the page itself, we've got some presets there. We're doing the little SVG of the logo and the little animation and the, link to the documentation. We put that you can just delete everything on that page if you want. So if you want, just select it all and just nuke it.
Okay.
And save that, and we'll see that reflected right away.
I really like the SVG of the skeleton.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to build.
Glowing red background.
We kind of used, I saw a really cool tip for the little like fade and stuff like that. And so all of that is just CSS and SVG. So there's not a single image loaded on the entire site. So, but if we want, we can actually add a couple of things here. So if you have the documentation up, we'll go and I'll show you a couple of things we can add here.
Let's go to the documentation.
So we'll go over to the Tailwind section first. So there's a link on the side. And so what this is what we kind of consider all of the Tailwind specific features. We kind of break this into categories. So we have the Tailwind specific features that are style related. We have Svelte, like the components and actions in their own little category. And then we have utilities, which are kind of a mix of everything, a little bit more complicated features like modals and dialogues and that kind of stuff, kind of segmented out as its own. So the first thing I want to talk about, if you don't mind clicking that design tokens link there at the top.
Absolutely.
So this is a really important concept to understand if you're using Skeleton, because you don't necessarily have to use this, but if you want to understand what's going on with our theming system and how you're creating this theme and how that's applying to your components, the design tokens are sort of the glue between that, right? So there's this brilliant talk by Brad
Great
Frost
talk.
that just I had been kind of noodling this idea of I knew it was we have these styles for that we want to set on our theme and we want to apply that over here. How do we get that? It's the go-between, right? And so I watched this talk by Brad and he just nailed it. I was like, this is it. This is the concept. And so, to summarize, what you're essentially doing is in your theme is you're creating CSS properties, which are CSS variables if you're coming from Sass or something like that, right? Just the native iteration of those that now exists in the browser. And so you're creating these sort of variables, if you will, and then the design tokens are the classes that we create that make use of those, that consume the variable values for you, and then make that where you can kind of use those through, in a reusable fashion throughout your entire application. And so we use those design tokens as a lot of our default settings for the components. So when you tweak something like the color value on the particular theme, it's applying that immediately to the token, and then the token is used in the component, and then that's how all that kind of carries through. So it's this really kind of neat system that we've provided, and it provides just this really cool feedback. So if you don't mind, if you click the theme section and go over to the theme generator, we can actually kind of see this in action.
Yeah.
So there's the edit mode button there that will turn on the theme generator itself. And then while you have this on, you're kind of seeing a live preview of any changes you make. So if you change the primary color there, you're going to see that kind of reflected in a bunch of different places. You can hit the randomize button too, which is really fun.
Oh, yeah.
It just changes everything for you.
I love this feature. It's so
yeah.
you can come up with some crazy combinations.
Yeah. And so the way we do this here is that's applying your colors. But if you go down a little bit further, you're going to see these different properties like your fonts, your border rounding, and your border radius and things like that. So if you change you change that, you're going to immediately see all of your inputs are now rounded like that, right? And so this is a value being set.
Way to tweak your design system.
Yeah, and you can kind of see what it's doing in the code for the
and it actually live updates them, which is just crazy.
Exactly, and that's kind of two parts. That's the design tokens and just the reactive nature of Svelte kind of. So when I say we're using kind of this nice combination of Svelte and Tailwind and all this stuff, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. It's just really cool.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
So that's the design tokens, just so you have some understanding of how we're kind of carrying some of that stuff across. And the cool thing with our theme generator is you can preview it on this page, right? But if you actually navigate, so if we go back over to that design tokens page, you're going to see something really cool, which is the theme comes with us.
The theme stayed, yeah, it's through the whole site.
So if you want to go see okay, what are the tab components going to look like, or the accordion, or
I like this theme. This is very Coding Cat themed. Yeah. My other podcast that I do.
It's funny how you can get some really nice themes just from randomization, right? You just hit the button and there you go.
And that's one of the problems a lot of designers have with colors too, is you'll go and you'll look at those color generators, but you can't really tell what it looks like in practice. And this does that for you. And
that's been an annoyance that I found in the past. So I was very keen on I want this to carry through the entire site,
Yeah.
So you can actually go to say the buttons section there. Just a little further down, and you can see all of your buttons tailored to those colors and the themes that you've got.
Yeah, and
right away.
Fits awesome.
So just a kind of a cool idea. You get immediate feedback on what you're generating, and know what you're going to get when you plug that in.
A question about the random colors that it's selecting: are they WCAG compliant, and how do you handle accessibility? Is there a contrast checker in there somewhere?
We're obviously making some progress on that. It's hard because if we're allowing any colors to go in there, which we kind of want for branding purposes and things like that, it's hard to balance that. So we've actually, even this week, put out some updates. If you don't mind going back to the theme generator real quick, I'll show one of the changes that we made that's been very, very beneficial here. So just below the colors themselves, we have this kind of idea of on colors. So you can see right now that primary color, it's a little hard to read that black on top of that pink.
Yeah.
So if you choose that little drop down below there, yep, you can change that. And now we can make that white. And so now you get a little bit more contrast. And so those values are customizable. So you have the power that if you want to make sure that each of my colors kind of work on that kind of combination, you have the power to change that.
And you can like tweak them individually, but even like some of the contrast checkers have a hard time with certain colors. Like purple is one, and pink or red, like this one, is also another one that yellow, I think, is another one that it really has trouble like detecting what's better for eye visual.
Yeah. And so our goal is here soon to implement a feature that will kind of try to pick the best one for you. Just, it'll do its best. But you'll still be able to change that if you're like, no, that's not quite right.
I think that would be a good step, and maybe even like saying if it's AA or AAA compliant, like on top of these, would be a really cool feature too.
Yeah. When I mentioned, Tailwind still in development, this is one of those features. Like I've got so many more ideas that I want to put into this, and it's coming. It's coming for sure.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, but I didn't want to show that off because, again, that was a new feature that we just released this week. So again, we're making progress in that regard as best we can. But if we want to, let's add some more stuff to our little demo.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we want to go over to back to the Tailwind section of the docs, we'll grab something that we can use. So buttons are a good place to start with. Very easy to use. You can see we kind of have this little interactive demo where you can kind of change the different settings, like you can make the button bigger or smaller or whatever, and it kind of gives you the little snippet of what you need to do to make that work. And so for our Tailwind elements is what we call them, for lack of a better term, these are just native elements. So you see this as a button or an anchor tag, and then we're just adding CSS classes via Tailwind to be able to adjust that. So we have some canned stuff like button styles and presets like button filled with the primary color, and then button XL for a large button. And so you can copy that entire snippet if you want and put it in.
These are not Tailwind utility classes. So these are utility classes that Skeleton is providing on top of Tailwind.
Exactly. Okay. But we're kind of trying to follow their that sort of mental model of these utility classes, these kind of small bite-sized classes that you pair together, and it kind of gives you that nice combination. And so there we have a nice button. It's just a native button. You could put that in a form, or you can make it an anchor tag and make it a link to wherever you wanted to.
And honestly, like this even makes it so much nicer than if you had all of these classes that you're using under the hood of this, like it would be 5 lines long.
Yes. So we're trying to cover like what do people need the most? Like what are they what's the common stuff, right? And the cool thing about this approach is that unlike a component, you don't have to import anything, right? So we didn't have to import anything to drop this button on the page. We could just add the classes, and there it goes.
And those are those native Tailwind ones that you were talking about.
And it's all configurable right here. So if you wanted that button to go from button XL to button small, you could do SM. There you go. And then you have a small button, So
got like a little pill badge there.
Yeah, exactly. So just very quick and easy to change those out. We're trying to do really nice defaults out of the box, and we're trying to make you very productive so you can just quickly and easily add kind of whatever you're looking for.
You have anything for sections? Is there a main tag here too? Is that in the app shell?
So what we do is one of the benefits of our project is that we have Tailwind available. So we try not to reinvent the wheel of what Tailwind is already offering. So they have really great options for things like grid and flexbox and things like that. So typically we recommend just use what Tailwind provides. It's perfect. It's a great solution.
Okay, so the app shell is in like the main tag.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was wondering, because I like not being able to see the markup. I was like, oh, do I need a main tag here?
Yeah.
I'm trying to be semantic and make sure everything is right. But
and again, we're trying to solve as many problems as we can, up front. just for you. So
It's going to bother me if I don't.
I'm glad you're like that, John. Same way. So that's the Tailwind elements. If you go back to the docs real quick, you can see we offer, several of these. So we have buttons, obviously, we have badges. We have some options that are, maybe a little bit more unique. Things like a logo cloud. So if you're trying to do, where you have several different companies that you're working with or sponsors or something like that, we have options for those. And these are all using that kind of CSS approach to this, right? So all fully responsive. They all adapt to your theme right away, but they're still configurable if you want to change the color or do
That is so cool to watch. I love
that. It's so much fun. Yeah. Now, you can only go so far with these sort of like, simple CSS and HTML elements. And so that's where the kind of next category of things in Skeleton comes from. That's the Svelte category, right? With all of the different components that we offer. So if you want, we can go try a couple of those out.
Okay, cool.
So you'll see we break things into two categories. We have actions. A lot of people I've noticed don't know what actions are with Svelte or haven't used those. Like maybe you haven't either.
No. I think that is a common thing that I hear also, and I think they're one of the most powerful things about Svelte.
They really are. They really are. So if me coming from the Angular world, we had the same concept, and it was called directives. And so the way I always thought of it is components are your UI and logic kind of bundled together, and actions are just the logic portion, right? So if you just need to interact with the DOM, or you need to have just some kind of logic that's triggered or a watcher or something like that, they're really good for that. And so we provide a few just out of the box, like clipboard, so being able to copy to clipboard and things like that.
Yeah, and it allows you to interact directly with the DOM element, the node specifically.
Exactly. And so the way we do that is we kind of have like a parent and child relationship with the button and the the content you want to copy. So those can actually, they don't have to be siblings. They can be kind of like separated or wherever you want. You just say, when I click this button, grab the content from that thing over there, And
so you have like a context setup or something? Okay.
Yep. So we offer a lot of these, which are really cool. Probably for a demo, I would suggest we do some of the components. And so maybe something like avatars. Avatars are always a fun one.
Okay, cool.
So we have, a bunch of different options, and you can kind of see, like, if I go in and I change some of the props, like the width value or something like that, you can change the different rounding. If those names and those, of those values look familiar, that's because they're just, again, using the same Tailwind utility classes for width, 40, 48 or what have you there. So anybody that knows Tailwind will kind of have an immediate understanding of like what that represents or what that's doing.
That is super cool.
Yeah. So that's part of our utility feature set, is we have SVG filters that can be applied to the images.
Oh, okay. I was like, how are you doing this? That's nice.
So really cool feature, kind of a cutting edge thing. It doesn't work, I will caution you, doesn't work on all browsers yet. Firefox specifically doesn't support it, but it's a progressive enhancement kind of thing. Like, you get a filter, cool. You don't get a filter, oh, you just get the regular picture.
Yeah, you just get the regular image. Yeah, that is a great way to even explain like progressive enhancement too. Like, that word combination together is so convoluted to my brain, but like when you explain it in simple terms of like how it actually works, it makes sense.
Yeah. So this is going to be one that we're going to need to import. So it's a component just like any other Svelte component. So we put the import statement right there at the top. You can click the little button, just right there. That'll copy for you, and then you'll just need to make a script tag. There we go. And then
we set up TypeScript, but we don't have to actually use TypeScript. Like, I don't need the lang equals TS here for anything.
Here, we probably won't use it here, but if you are adding types or something like that, Svelte will yell at you and say, hey, you need this here. Wait, we don't understand what you're trying to do.
Gotcha.
And it imports the component there. It's just called avatar. So if you want to add that wherever you want on the page, there you go. And then if we save that and go look at our page, you're going to see you immediately get your avatar. And it has a few kind of preset settings. It's got a background, and it's got what we call initials. So like letter initials. So if you had a name, Chris Simmons, it would be, you could put in like CS in there. So if you just want, you don't have an image for somebody, but you still.
Oh, you can do initials? That's cool.
Yeah. So you can do that by default, or if you treat it just like an image and you put a source tag on there, you can actually link off to an image, and it will auto size and fill the box.
Okay, I'm gonna go get my Twitter image.
Oh, that'd be perfect.
Give me a second. Copy image link and paste. Save. And there we go. Did we do the tiny one? Is that what I did? Or is it customized?
The default's kind of a medium size. So yeah.
Oh, okay.
If we want, we'll change that in just a second. So we'll see it.
Sure.
There it is. It's kind of small. So if we want to add a property there, it's called width, just like you might expect. And then the value we want to give there is a Tailwind width style. So width dash, and then whatever value. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Ginormous. Maybe half of that. There we go.
There you go. But that was the part that, that was really the hardest thing to nail down with Tailwind, was because we knew we wanted this customization, but like, how do we translate that? Because if you think about what a component is, it's a one-line reference here, but that's representing a template that has maybe a header and a body and all these different parts inside of it. So when you provide that option, where does it get applied? And so that's where this kind of comes in, is we've kind of figured out the API for, like, you just provide it on the component, and we figure out where inside of the template that needs to be applied.
Someone just asked a question about an extension that I have that does this class at the end, and I just installed this, and it's gonna kill me because I can't remember the name of it. I wonder, can you sort by the latest? No.
Sorting the classes themselves?
Well, an extension that I installed, and I just installed it like 2 weeks ago. So if I could sort the extensions by like the latest installed, but I don't think I can. Update date maybe, but I don't remember the name of it. Sorry. But yeah, I did that because I was a lot of markup, and you get confused at which one you're working with, and it just adds that to the end of it. Gotcha. Sorry to diverge a little bit there. But
no, you're good. You're good.
So did this work too with an alt tag? So you could have an alt prop here and change what the alt said?
Yes. And so again, our focus is we want it to be easy, and we want the accessibility portion to be easy. But there are going to be things like that you will have to specify, because they need to be specific to the item that you're creating. So yes, absolutely, alt tags, things like that. Well, you might see instances on some of our different properties for different components that are like accessibility specific, things like label or label by and things like that, which kind of key back into like ARIA roles and things like that.
Yeah, so right now there's not an alt tag on it. Oh, there is one. It's just not got anything. So do you do an alt with two, like just an empty string by default in that?
Yeah. So it'd be, it should just
because Svelte will yell at you too, the accessibility warning, if you don't put an alt tag on it.
Yeah, since it's unfortunately kind of wrapped in the component, it doesn't really know that's there. So kind of a bummer. I kind of hope like we kind of get something where we can kind of indicate that. I actually saw something the other day that I might be able to do that. So,
it wouldn't do it though, because you have the empty alt tag. As long as you have an empty one, it doesn't yell at you anymore. So
yeah.
If you provide that, it stops.
Yeah. In fact, if you want, I can show you a couple of those props. So if you create, adding any of these features, you might be like, what settings do I have available to me? So if you want to go over to the documentation. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. You'll see we have this like props tab right there at the top. Yeah. And so you can see this is sort of the list of things that you can add. And so you see like the sources on there. We have some, style stuff like background and width and border. And you can see what the defaults are too. So you were asking earlier, what is the default width? It's 12 right there. 12. We provide a little description so you can know what these are. And then you can see some of the more advanced stuff at the bottom, like being able to add actions. And that's where you kind of key in and use the filters that we were showing off earlier. This is the system you would use to provide that to your different to that component specifically.
Awesome. Can you show me how you would use like the action on this to do a filter?
We can. It's a little bit involved, so it may take a little bit of time. But when we get over to the utility section, I'll show you it on there, because we can kind of we can do the cheaty approach of like here's a pre-built example that just has it all.
Oh, okay, nice, gotcha.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So that's the components. So again, we've covered sort of the Tailwind elements. We've covered the Svelte components. We've talked a little bit about the actions. And so we have one more kind of category left, which is the utilities. And this is where kind of, I think, some of the more fun stuff comes in, like the really interactive features that are hard for you to kind of rebuild each project you create. Like, I don't want to have to go recreate code blocks or data tables or drawers every time I create a new application, right?
100%.
And so we provide these. And the way this works is they all tie straight into the same sort of systems that we're talking about for like theming. They use the same kind of prop structure for being able to provide different Tailwind classes to customize things. And a few of these do have like external dependencies, like you're seeing here with use highlight. We didn't have to recreate the wheel with highlight, right? So we're just kind of leaning on that to bring that in, but it's optional. It's again, that kind of progressive enhancement type feature where if you don't do that, you still get a code block. It just doesn't have the syntax highlight, which might be fine for some folks. So, but again, these are using kind of a combination of features that we provide. So they're using like the data tables are actually using Tailwind table classes that we provide to style that. So if you're like, I don't need the power features, right? I just want a table that uses my theme. It can kind of work in like a head.
This is so freaking hard.
Yeah.
I built one of these for the admin side of Coding Cat, and it is a nightmare to style.
Yeah.
I mean, in general, like tables, but this is probably not using tables, right?
Yeah, it's always funny. Like new people come in and they'll use Skeleton, and they just immediately go to the data tables, and I'm like, that's the most complex feature we have. You may want to build up a little bit.
Is actually using a table. I was thinking it was going to be divs under the.
Yeah, and we, again, we have the accessibility focus on there, so you can kind of like tab through the different rows and use some of your keyboard interactions and stuff like that.
That's crazy. Awesome.
But we're building it in this kind of like this one specifically is very unique, and it may be sort of like set the future of what Skeleton becomes, because it's not, how do I say it? It's not just kind of pre-bundled, like it's not one thing. It's like a collection of parts that you put together to build, a full table. So you have a native HTML table, then you use our Tailwind table styles to add the nice styles and the responsive look. And then we offer a bunch of utility features, which are scripts and things like that, to add things like sort and search and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So it's this sort of like progressive step. Like you can start with just a basic table and then style it, features,
My mind is blown now.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
Yeah. But if you want, like if you were like, oh, I just want the search feature, but I don't want the styles, you can just leave the styles off, and there you go. So it's a cool idea. We're still sort of fleshing out the concept, but I think it might, again, lay the groundwork for what Skeleton can become.
Awesome. Yeah. I feel like I need to use this in every project now. Like, why would you want to reinvent the wheel? And you can tweak everything. So it's just this is brilliant.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, again, we have very humble beginnings for how the project actually kind of came together. So, maybe sharing some of that is kind of useful here. Just so folks know, like this started in February of this year. So we're not that old really, in the grand scheme of things. I was working for a company called Brain and Bones, and we needed a solution for the platform and the projects we were building, right? And so we were coming from having a version of the project built in Angular, and it worked, and we had Angular material, but we had some problems with it. We weren't quite happy with like how inputs worked and stuff like that. And so when me and my partner, Thomas Jesperson, were working on this, we were like, man, we really like to use Svelte. We'd really like to use SvelteKit. Like, how do we rebuild our platform and use this? And so we did the same thing that most folks do, is we started going out and looking in the ecosystem of what sort of libraries exist for this. Like, is there a material library? That's what we're coming from. And so we looked at like Svelte Material UI, and it's nice. It doesn't seem like it's actively, quite.
You looked at Carbon, and you looked at
just looked at all these options, looked at some framework agnostic stuff like Flowbyte, and we're like, it's nice, but there's just there's something lacking, right? We really want to be, very productive and very fast. And so that was really the creation of Skeleton. We said, it's the Thanos meme. Let's build it ourselves, kind of thing of like, obviously misguided for some folks, but we're like, let's do this. And so we wanted to start very simple. We wanted to say, we're just going to build this. It's going to be closed source. It's going to be internal to our, to our company, and we want to build this for solving the problems that we have every day. And so we started building it. We started building a very simple component library. I don't know if we even had the name for it at that point, right? We're just like, it's just going to be the, our component library kind of thing.
Did you start it with Tailwind?
We did actually. Yeah, we did. So we were settled on Svelte, just right away. We kind of fluctuated a little bit on the styling because we were coming from like SAS, and we're like, we don't want to use SAS anymore. We're kind of done with the nesting and all of that. So we did, kind of think about, well, what if we did just pure native? Like that was a concept that crossed our minds. But what really kind of put us off of that was the fact that it was just going to be like, it felt like twice as much effort for any of this like customization and these ideas that we had, because we weren't maintaining one project, we were maintaining multiple with different branding. And so we needed this like theming system that would carry through. We wanted light and dark mode. And we just kind of got that from Tailwind, in a very turnkey fashion.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of informed our decision of like, let's do that, And so we knew our stack kind of going in. And the other thing we knew is we wanted to be open source eventually. Like we were building it for ourselves, but like, wouldn't it be cool if we could open this up and provide it to everybody else? Because if we're struggling with this, we can't find a library that we like. What if, the next person is going to be in the same situation, going to be in the same boat? And so we're like, okay, let's do that. And so we spent probably a good 6 months or so, like building this up. We had probably a lot of the basic stuff that you're seeing, like buttons and tabs and that kind of stuff. And then unfortunately, as kind of, happens with startups, the company had to, scale down operations. And so Skeleton got put on hold. Like I was not working on it. We went through the whole summer, did not, touch a line of code on Skeleton. And it very well could have stayed that way if not for me kind of getting that itch towards the end of the summer of like, I really want to see this through. Like, I think we have something. And so kind of late September, early August, I came back and I started talking to Trey Weir, who's the owner of Brain and Bones. And I said, would you mind if we just make this open source? Like, it's just sitting here, right? Like, let's do something with it. And so he's like, yeah, let's do it. Like, let's make it happen. And so early August, the project went open source. We kind of put out some messages like the Svelte subreddit and the Discord, and reached out to a couple like media sources and stuff like that. And we didn't really hear back from too many of those, but like the Svelte Reddit just blew up on it. Like people were like all about it, like super excited. We did get like one really, this kind of blew my mind of like, I've just built this thing kind of like to solve a problem. But we reached out to Smashing Magazine and got a response from Vitaly Friedman. He's like, yeah,
wow.
article. We'll feature it in Smashing Magazine. And
Amazing.
So like here I am, like this is the first time I've done an open source project or anything, and this is very exciting to kind of get that out there. And
I have a contact at CSS Tricks if you want me to get you on there too. So let me know.
These are the places that I've looked at and learned from years, years from. So it was just a little bit of like, starstruck kind of thing, super exciting stuff. But kind of between the combination of those, that was sort of the foundation of our initial kind of community. And so folks like Nick and Luke and Dominic, you might see as, our moderators and contributors on the project. Those are the folks that kind of came in and have now become our core team. And so, the CLI that we went through earlier, that is Nick's baby. He has built that completely, I've been like, hey, why don't you tweak that? Why don't you change that kind of thing, but he's built that, and it's just perfect. It's just working so great. And it's just been interesting to see that kind of concept of open source really kind of play out, in that anybody can come in and help make this better. And every time somebody does, then it helps the next person. And it's just, I don't know.
It's kind of a great story of like a comeback from like
Yeah.
being like scaled down, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you were laid off, but like that's a horrible situation. I'm sorry that that had to happen around you.
Yeah.
And then to like make good out of that though and bring it back to the
It kind of
community.
is. Yeah. Yeah. And, and it's just, it's one of those kind of things like, I just couldn't leave it be. Yeah, I was like, we really, we have something here, And so sure enough, like we've gone from that to, we're, I'm seeing people on YouTube and here and, all these different places picking up on it. And it's just, it's still kind of, blowing my mind a little bit because I'm like, this is just my like passion project kind of thing. But other people are coming in and being like, this is really good. Like I hear people every day saying, thank you for building Skeleton. And I'm just, at this point, I'm like, I don't know what to say other than thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
you're welcome, just thank you for using it and appreciate it, and we're getting bug tickets and just about every day I look in and we have a new pull request of a new feature or a fix or something like that. So Skeleton, as it stands, it's great shape, but it's continuing to get better and better through, the community. And I just want to say anybody that's from that out there, thank you for helping make this better because obviously I really appreciate it, but at the end of the day, I'm just glad to be able to contribute to something that just helps other people out.
Yeah. And
So,
I find the community around a lot of the development communities in general are great, but especially the Svelte community and then byproducts of the
so
Svelte
it's so
community.
unique, honestly. I come from
Yeah.
Angular, which has, I don't want to say no community, but it's just very like enterprise world, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
For
this
sure.
feels
It's
more
a
homegrown and
different
genuine, and yeah, it's really nice. It's a nice change of pace. Like I see the same faces everywhere, which is just so cool. So
yeah, absolutely. It's so awesome. And it's a great thing that you're building. And I think there's a need there. Like you said, there's a couple, but there's nothing like exactly like this that actually utilizes those felt features that we've come to love as a community.
yeah, I
And
mean,
the love.
again, I wake up every day and I'm excited to work on this, and I think we've got something great. And the thing I'm really looking forward to the most is just seeing what people build with it. We have like
Yeah.
a little showcase section on our Discord, and occasionally somebody will share something with that, and I'm like super giddy every time I see that light up of like, oh, what have they done? It's going to be so cool.
Awesome. I want to go through a couple more of these, and I see this one on the website too. I think
Mhm.
if you make it bigger, right?
Yep.
No.
So we try to cover all your bases. So like again, if you have this sort of dark mode idea kind of built in, then let's give you a way to kind of hook into that and persist that. So there's a
Yeah.
small component, easy to implement, and it does all that logic of I need to persist like what theme should be used in local storage and retrieve that and do all that. We just handle that for you. So
And you don't need to import anything for this. It's just using that class. So it's let's use your thing here that you did fragment. And
this one will be, you'll see an import statement at the top. So yeah, this one will need to
yeah,
be imported.
from here,
That'll be perfect.
let's see what I'm doing. Light switch. And we should have that up there. And it worked. Just so easy dark mode.
There you go.
I thought I put it at the end. Did that not go at the end?
Let's see. It looks like you've got a fragment. The fragment isn't named, so you might need to put the name of that, which would be trail, I believe. Slot equals trail. Or I think your buttons are the buttons right there are using that. So if you want to include that as part of that set, then that would be
Oh,
perfect.
okay. Gotcha.
There you go.
I can get rid of that one. There we go. Now it's at the end.
Yep. And again,
That's
that's
thing
kind of
with
combination of like all of these cool technologies working together. It's the reactivity of the Svelte and the light and dark mode provided by Tailwind.
Awesome. Yeah.
Cool. But and then really, I guess before we kind of close up here, I just want to kind of tease a little bit about what we're working on, like what comes next, kind of thing, right? Like right now, we're kind of deep into let's polish off what we have, let's finish what we have. We're not trying to do so many like unique features. We're not trying to hit a number or anything like that. We're just trying to put stability on the platform, trying to finalize the APIs for these different components and things like that. so that when we ship a 1.0, you're not going to have breaking changes the next day kind of thing. We don't want that. But when we kind of get to that point, which is coming up relatively soon, I would say, maybe weeks instead of months. But again, I'm a developer. Don't listen to me with estimates. But
I made fun of Rich Harris yesterday for that.
yeah,
He said 2023 for Svelte 4. I'm like, so
yeah,
2025? Like,
but yeah,
just
we're coming up on it. We're trying to get there, and then once we hit that point, we have some plans for what's kind of coming next. That's when we're going to probably kind of open the floodgates for starting to build lots of different components. So maybe you need a different type of menu component, or table of contents, or this kind of thing. That's the kind of stuff you'll probably see come more after that, when there's that stability and the API is settled. And then we're still kind of looking towards what do we kind of do to help sort of fund the project and ensure that we can kind of stay doing this as like my day job kind of thing, right? And so we've recently launched Skeleton Labs, which is the company that lives us alongside the open source project and just supports it. And so it lets us do things like have like a Ko-Fi, so you can, if you want to donate or something like that. And then we're trying to do things that will actually be useful for folks, so you get something out of it, right? So like premium support. So if you're a company that says, I want to come in and I want to build something with Skeleton, but I might need to call you in the middle of the night or something, right? Like emergency problem. We're going to try to offer some of that. And then the thing that really has me the most excited is we're looking to build like an asset store. And so it's really nice that we offer all of these primitives like buttons and tabs and things like that. But there's going to be times where you just want to come in and just say, I just want a blog. I just need a blog. My boss says, I need a blog tomorrow, kind of thing. And so be able to come on, grab that, and then with the really in-depth theming system that Skeleton provides, you can make that your own. You can really tweak that. It's not just slap a logo on it and call it a day. You can really tweak the values, the rounding, border, colors, all those kinds of things, and really make it your own, So I'm excited for us to get to the point that exists, because that solves, again, everyday problems that people face in this sort of industry,
I think those are great ideas to like make this thing grow and bigger. I was looking for the Skeleton Labs. Is that something that's already out that you can visit on the site?
Yeah, skeletonlabs.co. We don't have much on there. It's mostly just talking about what are we compared to the open source project. So 2 members, it's myself and Trey Weir, who is the creator of Brain and Bones. He's been a huge support all the way from me saying, hey, I have this crazy idea to build this UI library, up until, let's launch a company that's specifically for this open source project, right? And so he's been there right alongside the whole time. And it's just, he's a little quiet. He doesn't speak on the Discord and stuff like that. But no, he's helping kind of do all of this administrative stuff in the background and help us, help me with I'm making it, the tech work really well, and he's helping make the business work really well. So
that is really awesome. That's a nice partnership too.
Yes,
for the two of you.
I'm very thankful. I think Trey may be watching, so hi Trey. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. You're really helping us out a ton.
No, it's really nice when you have somebody who can do the things that, like, I don't know, I'm not good with like business sense and like handling all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I come from so many different, I've picked up little tricks here and there throughout the years, but I'm also kind of the worst salesperson, because I'm the type to just give everything away. Like, you just take that. I don't need that, whatever, kind of thing. But then it was like, oh, okay, well, now I've got to be homeless and go live on the street kind of thing.
You got to make money somehow. So yeah, there's a trade-off there. You've got to find like a good balance for that.
Yeah. So,
but I'm really excited to see the future of Skeleton. And like I said earlier, I don't know why I wouldn't use this on every project going forward.
Please do, and tell your friends.
Absolutely.
Again, we haven't been promoting, mostly because of the stuff going on the business side, because early on, everything was kind of under this umbrella of, Brain and Bones, the company that we created this under. And so I was really leery of putting the word out there of go to this GitHub repo and install this NPM package that I knew was going to move. It was going to change. Yeah. And so we didn't want to have to make everybody move across, along with that deal. But now that all that's established, we're settled, right? So you might start seeing us pop up a little bit, here and there kind of thing, a little bit more than we have in the past. But, I think it's a testament to, again, the Svelte community that we've garnered as much attention as we have, because it's all word of mouth. Like we make a couple posts here and there, but mostly it's just folks. Well, I'll go on Reddit and somebody will be recommending Skeleton, and I'm like, thank you.
No, when you're ready for like a 1.0 release, and we will make a big show of it, and we will have you on like
Cool.
Svelte Radio. We'll do another Sirens stream and product hunt. Like do a launch on product hunt.
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal. Like we have a list of folks that we want to reach out to and that kind of thing. But right now, I'm the type that I just want to see the library perfected, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
we're kind of in the in the trenches and just kind of
I get that perfectionist thing, and like it's so hard for us, like
yes,
kind of designers.
I guess so, in a way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's more of like I come from doing UX and stuff like that, so I tend to empathize with what other people are expecting of things, how things are.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So I'm always looking at it from the user's perspective of like, if this thing isn't working, I feel like that's a failure on our part. We got to fix it, So yeah, I guess in a way.
It speaks to you too, and your personality and your time with the community, that your community showed up too. And like I see tons of new faces here today, like just showing support for you, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the what's the Field of Dreams quote? Like, if you build it, they will come, kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
really what it feels like is I haven't intentionally tried to keep anybody around. I'm just trying to build this thing, and then people just keep sticking around and saying, promoting stuff, and I'm just like, cool, thank you, I appreciate it.
That is amazing. Well, this was an amazing stream. Thank you so much for showing me a little bit about Skeleton. I want to build so much more with it, and I'm sure I'm going to be diving into the community, asking more questions. So is there a link for the community? Is there a shortcut link, or
the easiest way is probably just to go to skeleton.dev, our website, and then that links off to the GitHub. So if you're having issues, you need to report something, it's got a link to the Twitter, and of course our Discord. And our Discord is fairly active. We have a good amount of people on there. And we try to help people. Like, we mostly focus on Skeleton, obviously, but if you have a Tailwind question or you have a Svelte question, we try to help folks out, and it's either me or somebody else will typically jump in and help you out with that stuff.
That is a great way to like be inclusive too, and not like scare people off.
Yeah, and just so folks know, we've kind of cheated and used the same code of conduct that the Svelte Discord uses. We're going to be kind of creating our own version, just kind of making our own. But I
feel like all of them are a copy of each other, so it's fine.
Yeah, but it's the same sort of ideas. Like we
are
all about inclusive.
Be nice to people. Be kind. Like,
yeah. Common sense stuff. Yeah.
Just recently, being kind is free. Like, just
yeah.
Be nice.
Exactly. But just so if anybody knows, if you join, that's the kind of environment you'll be coming into. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Well, I enjoyed this, and thank you everyone for sticking around, watching, and seeing everything that's to come. I can't wait to have you back on next time, Chris.
I look forward to it. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.